all behavior has a purpose. Okay, so nothing that our dogs do is random. They're very efficient creatures. The behavior that they're performing is meeting a need or creating a solution to a problem for them. And it can be a learned behavior, but it can also be sort of a natural thing that has occurred over time. So as we're talking about this stuff, we're not talking about whether your dog can do a bunch of cues. We're not talking about can they sit, can they lie down, can they stay, can they leave it when you ask them to. We're going to be talking about the more natural behaviors, the stuff that your dogs would offer if you didn't ask them to do anything. Okay. And then I want you to take those behaviors and use them as information, sort of like a window into how they're doing overall. Dog behavior falls into three main categories. So here are some common problem behaviors you might see, and I put problem behaviors in quotes. But instead of seeing them as problem behaviors, I want you guys to take this away and see them as behaviors that are meeting these needs. So that first grouping, those are social behaviors. Okay. The second grouping in the middle, those are more of like the foraging behaviors, the seeking behaviors. And then the grouping on the right is more of the hazard avoidance and management type behaviors. First, we'll dig into the social and reproductive side of things, which this is the one where you're building and maintaining some sort of connection or looking for connection. So I want to kind of draw a parallel here. So when we are thinking about social needs in dogs, sometimes it's hard to sort of see that in other animals, or be able to fully, I guess, empathize even with our dogs. So some examples of social needs in people might be something like catching up with close friends. Okay. So that would meet a social need of mine. So even if I don't have time to see them on a regular basis, it's important for me to be able to catch up with them, and it makes me feel good. It meets that need. Another example could be being with family, being with your kids, being, just being around people that are important to you and very familiar to you, people that you really care about. And then in the next picture is another friend's picture. But I put this in there because this was at a conference I went to, and I really had just met these people who have now become close friends of mine, um, mostly virtually because we live in different places. But we're just goofing off and being silly. So it's just like a laughing thing. We're making some pictures. So there was a purpose to that, but it was still kind of a silly experience. So going out meeting new people might be up your alley. It might not be your thing. Right. And then shared activities is the other one. So having these shared activities like playing video games together or crafting together or doing these things sort of side by side. My particular needs are being with people I'm close to, people I trust. And dogs are very much like that too. Some dogs are I want to go to a dog daycare and I want to meet all the dogs and I want to see as many as I can. And that meets their needs. The majority of dogs would prefer closer companions, like a small circle of dog friends, versus the dogs who, like the stereotypical lab. This is not all labs for sure, but the stereotypical lab that you think of when you're like, they're goofing off and they just want to go and mingle with everybody. That's a social butterfly person as well. They're out there, they exist, but it's not the norm and it's not the majority. So then for foraging, we're talking about gathering information and resources. So here's some examples of dogs foraging. We've got Jack in the top left there. He's digging a deep hole looking for something down there. We've got some dogs here who are rooting, sniffing, digging. Hard to see in the picture, but some of them might be like pressing their paws onto the ground. We have a dog on the bottom middle that is probably doing some sort of stalking or pointing. Okay, so those are all dogs who are gathering information. This is where we might see foraging. I will go to Target or I will go to Home Goods or I will go to any places similar to that. I'll spend an hour or two um, just literally wandering the store and browsing, especially if my own welfare is a little bit low and I need some more of that foraging. Another form of foraging for me is learning something new. listening to a podcast is typically my go-to because usually I'm multitasking. Um, so so learning, okay, which is there. My son Bennett is showing off that one. He loves to read. So reading and learning can also be a common one. Doom scrolling. The quotes of doom scrolling, right? But you're just scrolling your phone, you're catching up on stuff, you're learning what's going on in the Facebook world, or if you want to, in politics, or in, the news, stuff like that. So you're seeking information. And then sports and games, I put that more in the foraging category, but also it can be in the social. In this case, the reason why this falls into the foraging category is because I am trying to, how can I put this? Trying to grow something, trying to improve, seeking more skill, right? Seeking, which we could say the same for dogs. Like if they're really into learning new things, they like to learn new tricks and do all that sort of stuff. We can call that foraging because they're foraging for more information. Jumping into the hazard avoidance and management category, this is where dogs are seeking predictability. They might be seeking distance from something. They're trying to avoid something. They're seeking a sense of security. Hazard avoidance, some examples in people might be like car safety. So putting headlights on, using your blinker. Um, you do certain things in the car to go into hazard avoidance mode, but like it's still you're meeting that need of getting from point A to point B, doing it safely, sure, but being able to have that sense of control over I can go out and drive and get to where I need to go. So that's still probably a need that you have, right? But you're doing it in a safe way. So you've got these behaviors that you do that meet that need for you to have that sense of agency and control, being the driver, being the one behind the steering wheel. Another example is thrill seeking. Some people really love roller coasters. Again, not me, but I used to when I was a little bit more open to thrills like that, maybe. Like why would you want to go hang upside down in something that you're barely strapped into and cross your fingers and hope for the best? Right? It's because this hazard avoidance stuff is really important. It's a need that people have, and some will play it out in different ways than others. So when you're thinking about these things that our dogs are struggling with, try to see it from their perspective as far as, well, why, if my dog is afraid of this thing, this person, this experience, then why are they going closer to them? Yet if they move, they start barking, right? Like, why are they trying to be involved in something if they're actually afraid of it? It's because of this hazard avoidance and management need that they have. They want to have those opportunities to control something in their environment. And some, again, more than others. Some will avoid it, but some want to get close enough because they're curious, they're interested, but then they want to like move away from it or offer some behaviors that take care of that. Behavioral diversity is a measure of where our dog's welfare state is. Okay. The more behaviors we see in them, the more rich their repertoire of behaviors is, um, the better their welfare likely is. Because these are dogs who, if they've got a bunch of different behaviors that they offer, they're not shut down, they're not being suppressed, they're feeling good, right? They're feeling open and curious and interested in things going on around them. So the more natural behaviors they offer, the better their welfare likely is because they're not shut down, they're not feeling suppressed or feeling like they have to disengage from what's going on around them. So this is an example of what that might look like. Each of these colors indicates a behavior on the ethogram, a behavior that dogs will show naturally. Okay, so the one on the right has a lot more richness and color to it. There's a lot more that they will offer over the course of whatever period of time you're measuring it. And the one on the left is more minimal diversity. So there are fewer colors, believe it or not, and it is a little hard to see. But with the one on the right, there's so many, and they fill in, 100%. Each of these circles, pi circles, as pi circles go, or pi graphs go, will fill in to 100%, right? So if on the left, let's say the dog who's, I don't remember what behavior this was, but let's say it's a dog here who's doing just a lot of, maybe he's peeing on everything, right? And so this takes up a big chunk of time, but maybe that's almost too much because it doesn't leave room for him to be doing other stuff, or he does that excessively. Then we've got the one on the right here who, it's it doesn't necessarily have to be balanced, but it's varied. It's rich with colors and different experiences, different things that the dog shows. I want you to use behavioral diversity as a compass. What I want you to do is use the behavioral diversity as a measurement, as information of where your dog is right now. Okay. So notice those patterns so that you can kind of support your dog intentionally as opposed to just reacting to things along the way.